We will continue to be there to protect Canadian workers and Canadian industry, and we will look very carefully at what steps need to be taken to ensure that the Canadian auto industry and indeed Canadian consumers are well supported for years to come.
The federal government is considering cracking down on a surge in electric vehicles imported from China. How much of a surge? Well, based on dollar amount, there's been a year-over-year increase of nearly 1,300% in EV imports from China. Many of those are coming from Tesla's Gigafactory in Shanghai. Last month, the United States slapped a 100% tariff on electric vehicles made in China, and Canada may soon follow. According to the Deputy Prime Minister's office, China has an intentional state-directed policy of overcapacity. We are actively considering next steps to counter Chinese oversupply. Protecting Canadian jobs, manufacturing, and our free trade relationships is essential. For more on this, I'm joined now by Ontario's Economic Development Minister, Vic Fedeli, who supports the idea of this tariff, and his government has been calling for it. Minister, it's good to see you again. Thanks for joining us today.
Great to see you, David. Thank you.
You look at that one-year increase, and that's just in the first quarter, a 1,300% increase. That's moving fast. How quickly do you feel the government needs to move on this issue, and what are the consequences of not matching the U.S. here?
Yeah, we need to move right away. Premier Ford has asked the federal government to match the U.S. tariffs against these cheaply made electric vehicles that are coming into Canada. We need to support our own electric vehicle industry. You know, we've gone from $0 to $43 billion in electric vehicle supply chain in 4 years, and this could really stunt this nascent business.
You heard there the statement from the Deputy Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, Chrystia, Freeland's office. They say they're actively considering next steps. She discussed this apparently over a dinner in Washington on Monday with Janet Yellen from the U.S. federal government. Are you satisfied with the response you've heard from the federal government so far?
Well, they need to signal that they're going to use every tool that they have at their disposal. Look, we need to be cautious, but we need to also be aggressive with every tool that we can. You know, the fact of the matter is, in China, they have cheap labor, they have low labor standards, they have dirty energy, so they are making these cheaply made Chinese vehicles, and they intend to flood our market with them. And we've got to not only protect the workers, protect the jobs, protect this EV supply chain that we've built, but we've also got to protect our trade relationship with our number one trading partner, the United States.
Right. So when the U.S. first made this move, Minister Champagne, who I know you know well, was on this show, and I asked him about it, and he said very early in this process that, yeah, we're going to look at this because we don't want to be a backdoor for China to get in here and get into the United States. Your sense on that surge we're seeing, mostly through the Port of Vancouver, this increase in electric vehicles that are made in China coming in, do you think that's because of U.S. restrictions that are being diverted into Canadian ports? Is that your read on what's happening there?
Oh, there's no question that the Chinese are looking at these back doors. They want to supply the U.S. with cheaply made products. There's no question about that. And our whole role will be, you know, why we've built this from $0 to $43 billion is make North American parts to make North American vehicles with North American workers and with safe North American technology. You think about an EV today, it really is a computer on wheels. We need that vehicle in North America to be safe as well.
Right, so you feel there's significant national security concerns there in terms of what could be embedded maybe into the software, into the hardware, into the firmware of vehicles made over there.
Think about it. It's a computer on wheels today. That's the technology that's changed in 120 years. That this is the difference, and that technology we need it in the hands of making sure that it's safe in North American hands.
Okay, so with all the money that your government has put on the table through upfront capital investments and then production subsidies at the back end and the federal government as well, you can see the stake that's there. And you mentioned the trade relationships with the United States and this push, not just on electric vehicles, but on other critical assets like semiconductors to build a North American supply chain. But there's trade implications of getting tough with China. And canola has often been caught up in geopolitical issues, where suddenly they stop taking imports, beef and other agricultural products. What are your concerns on retaliation from China on some of our other key businesses should Canada follow the American lead here?
Well, think about it again, put it in perspective. United States is our #1 trading partner. We do, out of Ontario alone, not just Canada, just Ontario, we do almost $500 billion a year with the US and Ontario, almost evenly split. In China, we do $53 billion a year. We buy $50 billion worth of goods from China, we sell them $3 billion. So there's a huge trade deficit here. It's not really about our relationship with China. This is really all about our relationship with our #1 trading partner, the US. We need to show them that we're going to back their play and not let a backdoor into the US come through Canada.
No, and I can certainly understand the value and the weight and the power of that Canada-US trade relation. But as you say, the $3 billion that goes to China, that's $3 billion that a Canadian somewhere is making. And while it may not be a significant part of the economy, it's a significant part of their personal economy, certainly in some of these sectors, right? So there has to be some consideration of potential consequence there, does there not?
And that's why we say to the federal government, use caution, but we've got to mitigate these cheaply made Chinese products. So you've got to use every tool in the drawer, but use caution.
There is also, the minister, this overarching push, at least while this current government is in place, to hit emissions reduction targets by 2030, to get to a mandate of electric vehicle sales by around 2035 and beyond. A lot of people might look at this and say, does it matter where the cars we drive are being built if it gets us to a zero-emission driving fleet and gets us to cheaper electrification? I mean, could there not be a benefit to buying cheaply made cars from a place like China?
Well, I think it matters to the 120,000 people who have those good-paying jobs in the auto sector. You know, when we got in power in Ontario 6 years ago, both Australia and Ontario were headed downwards on the auto sector. Australia went all the way down. They don't make autos there anymore. That could very easily have happened here in Ontario. Premier Ford did not let that happen. We made these investments. We saved the 100,000 auto worker jobs here in Ontario. And we also added tens of thousands and are going to continue adding tens of thousands, making batteries, making all the components for batteries. We went from 0 to $43 billion in announcements in new EV. We went from 0 to #1 in the world. Canada is now #1 global EV supply chain. Right here, primarily in Ontario. So it matters to those people who are working.
Okay, so the federal government says they're working on it. You say they need to move fast and they need to match the United States. But, you know, trade challenges, they need to be finely calibrated so there are no knock-on effects. What's the sort of timeline? Because we're not the United States. We can't act with the impunity of the U.S. What's the timeline you want to see Canada have something firmly in place by?
Yeah, match the U.S. They're going to have it in place by August 1st. So let's make sure we're completely aligned. We've got to show the United States, we've asked them all along, make sure you make concessions. It's not buy American, it's buy North American. And we've asked for that. We've got to at least show that we have a genuine interest in having their back. It really is about this relationship, this $500 billion a year relationship that we have with the U.S.
Ontario's Economic Development Minister, Vic Fedeli, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, David.